Good morning, everyone. As you can see, I shaved my face off, looking like a baby now. I wanted to talk with you guys about an article that I read yesterday, and I put it on my Instagram story, my Facebook story yesterday as well. It's about a Minnesota professor who implies God raped Mary by having her impregnated without her consent, giving birth to Jesus. When I read this, I didn't really know what to think of it. I knew in my gut it was wrong. However, I didn't have anything to actually back it up. So I had to suspend my judgment, as we all should do if we don't have the facts, and something's told to us that we don't know right away how to rebut or if it can be rebuted. As I read through the article, I found there was a comment from him, to him from somebody who stated what he is saying is false. In the Bible, there's a verse in Luke where Mary actually gives consent to having God's child. After reading this, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Now I have to do the research on my own, which I implore you all to do. If you hear something that you don't understand, you don't know, you think it's wrong, do research on your own before you accept it or deny it. That way you can see if you're wrong or you're right. So that's what I did. I looked, and then sure enough, I believe it's in Luke chapter or book verse something 18. I don't really know how they do it, because I'm not big into the Bible, as you can tell. But so I looked in the Bible for myself, saw that Mary did give consent for God to impregnate her and bear his child. When the person said this to him to tell him he was wrong, his response was something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm trying to be as honest as I can with what he said. It didn't matter that she gave consent. It was basically a guarantee that she was going to say yes, because God is so powerful and so cruel that he could have killed her for saying no. So the no was negated by that factor. What this is implying is God is the ultimate oppressor. So, with that being said, I had two questions after reading this article, which I started thinking about last night that is. I wrote a little bit, got my thoughts down, trying to organize them, which I think everybody should do before you speak on something you have little knowledge on, to see exactly where you're missing and what you should know. After writing, I came up with two questions. They were, why would you want to imply God's a rapist? And what do you gain out of God being a rapist? The first thing that the first question I think is the most important one to answer to get to the second question. Why would you claim God's a rapist? Well, I see it like this. You would want to make God out to be a rapist to bring some relevance or equivalence to today's society, where we see power, or those who have power, being the oppressor, and those without being the oppressed. And since God has ultimate power, regardless of your belief, just follow along with the chain of logic I am presenting here. Since God is the almighty, most powerful entity in the universe, he is the ultimate oppressor. Mary had no choice, as he stated, the professor who made his argument, as he stated, she had no choice and had to give consent whether she liked it or not, because God has the most power. Now, with that, this can also be translated into where we see the Me Too movement going, where powerful people are abusing their power and doing things without the consent of the woman. She's forced into this behavior because she is powerless in the situation. That's also another relevant point that he was trying to tie in with the biblical point. That leads us to, what do you gain out of making these false equivalences, and what's the purpose of doing it? So in his Twitter feed, it says that he's secular, meaning he doesn't believe in any kind of religion whatsoever, and he endorses it, believes that there should be no religion, which with the oppressed narrative ties right along with Marxism, since Marx says religion is the opioid of the masses, and supports secularism, tying back into where I was talking about why would he be doing this. Well, it is to create and stir the pot and create indignation among the people. That way they will untether themselves from the oppressive grips of religion or God and be free, in a sense. Although we see what happens when a secular society arises, you are not free. You're lost. You lack a sense of unity and meaning. We see that today in America, and the youth in particular, with the suicide rates going up, loss of direction, no guidance, no unity. Little things are falling, are breaking off from the American culture that are putting our society at jeopardy at the moment. By eliminating religion, you completely get rid of everything that has made America great. So, by his endorsing of secularism, comparing God to the oppressor, applying the Marxist ideology to this, the reason he would do that only makes sense because it makes sense once you realize those couple things that I've stated, because you have a void in meaning and purpose and connection among the people and the society, leaving a vacuum, a power vacuum, like in a failed state we see in Libya, Syria, a power vacuum for somebody to take over and fill that void, create meaning, and with there being no God, no religion, nothing higher than man, what then will fill that void? What then will provide meaning? The government. If you didn't already connect those dots yourself, the government will fill that void. The government will create that meaning, will bring unity, will be that unifying myth that keeps the nation strong. Although it isn't a myth, it's a man-made thing. It isn't a higher entity. There's nothing higher than God. Regardless if you believe it or not, just follow the chain of logic for a second, like I've stated already. What happens then when the government fills that void? And we have a secular government, which is good. I believe in a secular government. We shouldn't have a government like in the Middle East where they're ran purely on their religion. That's despicable. But we shouldn't have a secular society. What happens when you have a secular government and a secular society? They give all their meaning to the government, going to them for everything. As I've been talking about for a while now, you create a state of dependency when all your meaning is derived from the government. And with there being no God, and we lose all our values, we lose wisdom, we lose a sense of meaning for life, which then opens the gates to hell. I'll give you an example. When there were secular societies in Germany in the 40s, in Italy in the 30s and 40s as well. Russia, same time frame, or even earlier, early 19th century, 20th century. China, same time frame. Cambodia, same time frame. Vietnam, same time frame. What happens? What do we see? We see mass murders, huge amounts of death that could have been prevented, and they were exacerbated due to governments running everything and nothing being more powerful than man. There was nothing at the top of the pinnacle. There was nothing higher than whoever was leading that nation. Nazi Germany is what I was referring to. The USSR, both Lenin and Stalin and every other leader after Stalin, mass deaths took place underneath them. Mao's China, millions of people died because of him. Cambodia, millions died. Vietnam, there was a war in which we were involved in, the Vietnam War, between communism and the non-communist state, the South. We see what happens with no religion in a society today in China and North Korea, in Cuba as well. The list goes on, what happens when you have a secular society and a secular government. It just creates a disaster, and the people lose their meaning, lose their individuality, and give everything to the state. That is a dangerous thing. All it takes is one person who has no moral compass, and how can you have a moral compass without religion? Especially when you have the power of a president or a world leader, to step into office and do whatever he or she wants. That's a scary thing. This is a lot more than people are making it out to be with his comments on religion. This professor is doing something very evil, immoral, some would say, and I would say, I agree with that. We should be very mindful of trying to do away with religion. Human beings, Homo sapiens, have evolved hand in hand with religion. Whether you believe it or not, there are meaningful values that can be derived from religion. We should acknowledge that and cherish those values, especially since America has been founded on those values. And in my opinion, we have the greatest values of all. The Western values are the greatest. You go to a country like Saudi Arabia, they're just now allowing women to drive, giving women rights. There's no equivalence between the two. And the reason for that is because of the Judeo-Christian values we have in America. So, I implore all you, when you hear talk of presenting secularism onto the society, to inform those who are pushing that every time there's been a secular society, the government has taken advantage and killed, slaughtered, raped, pillaged their citizens. Nothing good comes out of it. This professor is very immoral. That's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and be aware of what happens when there is no God in society. It's bigger than we make it out to be. It really is. So, all right. See you guys later. And yeah, have a great weekend. Peace.